Okay, we're live, and you have literally the four smartest people in G Plus, and I'm not even kidding. We've got Rose Patton, the queen of intellect. We've got knowledge, which I mean, her name says it all. Let's not even try to argue that. And then we got pillbox, and if you can't put a whole lot of wisdom in a pillbox, you can't put anything in a pillbox. So you got real smart people here tonight. And what we're gonna do is we're gonna just have some fun and kick it at the trolls a little bit because the trolls need a little attention. But before I do that, I want to just tell you that the hangout is called Flat Earth Revelation 1:7. Let me just read Revelation 1:7 if I can quickly. Look, he is coming with the clouds, and every eye will see him, even those who pierced him, that would be the mockers, and all peoples on earth will mourn because of him. So shall it be. Amen. So we live on a flat surface, and that would be about the only way that if everybody was looking up at the same clouds at the same time, they would be able to see our Lord coming in the clouds. If we're on a ball, that just doesn't make any sense at all. So let's start this topic off. Let's let the trolls start kicking a little bit of their game. How do you guys feel about the Christians in the community that don't believe their own scripture and actually think scripture is out and out crazy? So crazy that they can't wrap their heads around the fact that Satan may very well have deceived this world. Rose Patton, how are you tonight, my love?
Doing great, thanks. Yeah.
Well, I know you guys have had your share with the trolls, right? Like there wouldn't be a single one of us
Of course.
that hasn't had to deal with the troll nonsense, right?
Trolls let you know that you're doing something right.
Yeah,
Amen
without them, this wouldn't be possible. Yep.
What do you think, Knowledge? Would you agree?
I think so. As far as Christians not liking the flat earth topic, I think it comes from all those years where atheists and mockers would equate us, young earth creationists and especially out of Christians, as being flat earthers just as a slam. And so there's a natural resistance build up to it from all those years of that happening, of us being equated with people that were deemed to be crazy. And now all of a sudden it's like, no, wait, it's true. And then of course you're going to have a lot of resistance. Of course, that doesn't mean that they were right all that time. It just means that that's why there's such resistance to it, I think.
Well, I would say that these people are absolute cowards, and I'm sorry, that is without apology. The fact of the matter is they have been given the same chance we all have been given, and they have chosen to believe in man instead of the Bible, and I have absolutely no regrets as far as calling these liars out, because they're lying to my face. I've asked them over and over again, listen, we've already been in your shoes, so unless you step out of your shoes and put a different pair on, you don't have a say-so anyway. If I was able to admit it, and last time I checked, I'm not a Superman, I don't have special powers, I'm able to go, you know what, I might be wrong. You know what, I really haven't looked into this too much, so let me, and I realize that the people that do express a ball earth heliocentric model are usually lying to me anyway, so I might want to look into this just a little bit more than pretending I understand it because of TV, which a lot of these people have been raised on apparently, and they had a third parent just like I had a third parent, and for some reason they can't let it go. Well, I can let all three of my parents go. That's the difference. If you're not willing to sacrifice for the truth, then you are not going to know the truth. And I'm sorry that this upsets you and that you're really butthurt and that your family would laugh at you, and you might have even asked one of your friends about it and they thought you were so stupid they couldn't believe, oh, that's the dumbest thing. And because you're so worried about what your friends think of you and your family thinks of you and the pseudo-intellectual other groups that you supposedly talk to and hold in esteem with, that you are literally scoffing at the Bible. And you aren't mocking me, you are mocking the word of God. And that's why once this started happening, once I started noticing how many so-called Christians started attacking this truth, I realized this was the biggest issue I had ever come across in my life. And that the fact of the matter is that there is so much evidence out there right now. It is absolutely ridiculous. And not only was I wrong about one thing, I was wrong about actually 3 or 4 things when it came to this paradigm that we've been brought up to and brainwashed to believe in. Every single movie we've ever seen has a globe at the beginning of the program, and it's called a program for a reason. And every single time we watch a science show, whether it was Discovery Channel, it does the same thing. Usually, back in my day, the Discovery Channel used to have a little ball in the bottom right-hand corner just spinning the entire time. And that obviously just reassures you where you are. You are an insignificant little germ on a distant ball out in the outer regions of a galaxy that you can't even imagine. And you think that's science because you saw it on TV. Well, you're doomed. And if you continue on this path, you are leading children astray from our Creator. And again, Jesus Christ makes it very clear, if you are to lead his children astray from him, you're better off to tie a millstone around your neck and cast it into the sea. So, and I will reiterate that every time, is that the truth is absolutely everything. That's why Jesus Christ says the truth will set you free. You know, he is the way, the truth, and the life. That's probably why the truth matters. And guess what? You were wrong, and you continue to believe in man. If I listen to a music band, Rose Patton, you know, I used to listen to a band with the name Savior in it, and I can't listen to them anymore because they were mocking the Savior. Could you imagine if as a Christian, realizing just even 1% of Christianity, what God would think of me if I listened to a musical group called Lucifer? Well, guess what? There's something even much worse than that. There is a people that dedicate their worldview to a telescope on Earth named Lucifer. Could you imagine if I stood before my Creator and told him, oh, well, they had this really big telescope out in Arizona, and it was called Lucifer. So clearly we had this evidence, God. Boy, I'll tell you what. I would rather be eaten alive for 1,000 years by red ants than to approach my Creator telling him that something called Lucifer gave me evidence against his book.
Right. Yeah, it's been my observation that when it comes to Christians and science, that they will bow to the world of science no matter what and just put a Christian coding on it. The young Earth creationists have been somewhat of an exception, but for the most part, they still accept the Big Bang Theory. They accept that there are huge burning balls of gas, stars out, unimaginable distances away. You can go to the Creation Museum. I've been there and watch their fantastic cosmology show. You sit in a very comfortable chair and almost fall asleep and watch the planetarium kind of a display, only it's a really good one. But they still believe the standard cosmology and young Earth creationism, which, there are people, that I mentioned this Dr. Michael Heiser, who's an expert in ancient Hebrew and Semitic cultures and languages. And he believes that for consistency's sake, you either both believe in a 6-day creation and a flat earth, or you believe in neither. And he personally doesn't believe in either. He chose the neither route, and he believes that it's something you have to use something called theological messaging, which is basically a fancy word for allegorizing the whole Bible. And then he realized at one point what a corner this painted him in, because if that's an allegory, even though it's written as history, Genesis and other portions, then even Jesus rising from the dead is called into question, because you can't say anything happened in the Bible by his theological messaging method. So, yeah, it's a big deal.
Yeah, it's an endless topic, and it certainly is an infinite learning time period for anybody that's gotten involved with it. That's the one thing that I have realized is that I almost feel like I literally knew nothing almost knew nothing before I realized my foundation. So that makes sense to me. How can you really know anything without a foundation? If your thought process of what your foundation should be is completely ridiculous and borderline psychotic and just basically insane if you think about it, with today's science and with our repeatable methods and the fact that we still know the laws of physics are a constant, including inertia and angular momentum and centrifugal force and all these things. If you go to the teacup ride, knowledge scavenger, if you go to teacups in Disneyland, when it reaches that consistent speed of 21 miles an hour, it's not changing speed, but I guarantee you can feel the movement. So you realize this when you just break down a few simple basic things that you might have experienced in life, because that's where real science comes into being. And many of us have gone to those sorts of thing parts and experienced the teacup ride or some other stupid carny thing that was almost, we were on the verge of death, and we learned from these things. I remember being scared on some of those things, and I'll remember exactly what it felt like. Well, it was consistently going the same speed for a good, 2 minutes too long. I'll be honest with you. And you could tell that it was moving. So these heliocentric people, though, one guy came into to the chat at Patricia Steer's hangout today with Mark Sargent, and we were just hanging out watching. This guy came in, and you would think that he's a robot. He's got this real liberal, cool picture or something, but the guy just kept saying like, well, my sister or my wife is a scientist. And I was like, wow, this is an awesome testimony. Your wife is a scientist. Wow, I've never heard this one before. And then he went on to say that his friend studies, astrology. And he said, there's no flat earth astrologers. And I said, oh, there was one actually by the name of Jibby Jedi. He's an astrologer, actually. Have you contacted him? He's been studying that stuff for a long time. And I hope I got that right. Jibby's of course going to correct me on that. But this guy would just repeat these things like a robot. You're like, wow, this is really I'm going to really bet and pretend that this is a real human being, and just realize that these people have been brainwashed so bad that they've turned into these robots, and they don't even know what they're saying about their own model. They don't even know what they're thinking of. They just know in their mind, because of all the TV, that they're on a ball, and there's space and things that they've seen on science fiction movies. The ironic part, like we talked about the other day, the fact that everything they're showing is actually literally admitted to be sci-fi, but that's where they get they literally take that all in, including the Star Wars and the Star Trek or whatever, and that's what they base their real, I guess, paradigm on. So there's a point where you got to realize, like, wow, that person really believes all that, So imagine trying to unwind that problem, first. Right. So you have to and for some of us, I got to admit, like, thank God, I have to be honest with you, thank God I really didn't get into that stuff. And I was I was more of, the stupid kid, raised by a baby boomer that wanted to, watch the weapons things and military planes, and watching all these, they used to brainwash you with all this stuff for years, including the History Channel. It was called the Hitler Channel for a long time, but it's all part of an indoctrination system. Literally every single thing you can remember watching on TV was literally basically to manipulate your mind, and that's just a reality. And not everybody can come to the courage that it takes to admit that.
Right, exactly, because it's the resistance to having your world turned upside down. I mean, that's understandable, but still, truth is truth, and you either care more about what's real than what's comfortable, or you don't. And everybody's going to have to make that choice.
And that's the one thing that I keep trying to tell people, because a lot of people get frustrated. They're like, wow, this guy is, saying these things, and it's just really, and I'm like, hey man, it's not for everybody though. You have to realize though, like, you can only go so far with a lot of people. We're not here to interrogate people. Don't get me wrong. And you certainly don't need to have a 6-hour conversation with your family member. If you're worried about your family member getting upset, you know what? they have been indoctrinated so bad they don't want you to be right anyway. So you got to
Right.
realize, but here's the sacrifice. The biggest sacrifice that people have to make is that not everybody is supposed to be living in reality. Not everybody is supposed to understand the flat Earth. That's so obvious, because if you can't understand that, well, then you already have problems. I mean, it's not. This isn't a difficult subject. It's one of the. I've had a lot of difficult challenges in my life. Excuse me. Knowledge capture. I'll be honest with you. This flat Earth is got to be one of the easiest things that I could ever hope to just come across in my entire life, and that's why I feel very blessed. And people don't realize that the truth is such a blessing. It really is, and it's not something that somebody can explain to you. Just like math, I can't
Right.
explain reality with ones and zeros on paper. Even though people want to put their whole lives into math when it teaches them nothing, they're actually missing an entire world they don't even actually believe in, or giving it a chance because they're stuck in a pseudo world. It's like if I were to explain music to somebody and say, well, here's the sheet music. You don't really need the music, do you?
Yeah.
Could you imagine how like the people be like, are you kidding? Oh, so excuse me, now you understand the difference between light years of the reality versus ones and zeros on paper. That's when you come to that realization, oh shit, wow,
Right.
what a difference. How could I understand? I could look at that stuff all day long and I'd be like, I have no, even after I used to read music 20 years ago and I forgot how to do it because I didn't use it. And I remember going, oh, okay, that's okay. And then I actually have to go through it many times before I'd even be able to understand the sheet music. I had to learn it first for a long time. So that didn't teach me anything. But sometimes you already have the information to play a song and it's in your mind and it's not describable until you put it into reality using the instrument. And that's what these people are doing. They're missing an entire reality and they're hiding behind these sheets of paper. And it's really
Right.
sad
That's a good
because they're missing
illustration.
everything.
Yeah, with music, that's a good illustration. I was taught to read music first. It was a classical training, and you could get to the point where anybody could throw a sheet of music in front of you and you could play it. You knew how the song went because you read the notation. But it's also the difference between a mechanical playing of a piece or singing and being a musician to play musically or sing musically. And it's not one of those things you can put a hard and fast definition on, but you know it when you hear it. And so when somebody's putting their soul into a song, that's playing or singing musically. Whereas if you're just reading the notes on a page and just mechanically reproducing them, that's not really musicianship. In the same way, some people get that. I mean, there are people who have a really good knack for ad libbing. You know, they can play a solo that hasn't been written down before. It just flows through them. And I'm not one of those people. I can't do that. I can read music, I can sight read, but I cannot, just making up a tune out of my head would sound horrible. So um, that's just a different way of looking at things. And like you said, not everybody has every perspective on this thing.
Right, and that's why it's called a learning process. I mean, musicians know this, and I think that in the flat Earth community, you'll see that almost everybody's there's a lot of musicians here all the time, and if you notice, that's how they party too out there in Freechan. That's they're it's like a bunch of kids playing guitar all the time, and that's a good sign because these kids have woken up to reality, and that's why they're able to stay kids. So if you just look at some of the telltale signs of like what types of groups are behind which type of movement, the problem just explains itself right there. So again, going back to the problem is Christians. These so-called Christians pretending that they're Bible believers, and then they are getting in our way as people that actually believe the Bible and have actually taken it seriously enough to really get into these things and look into it thoroughly, honestly, and not worried about what the truth was, just making sure that we found the truth at all costs. And that's what these people have done. And that's basically the flat Earth community. They were always looking for more. They're always like, this is terrible, but what is it going to do? This is okay. Yeah, we're all controlled little pieces of garbage. We're eaters. That's what we are. We are useless eaters. And these people realize that that's how people are portraying them. So they start to realize a distrust with the governments. So right away they can go, wait a minute, how could I trust NASA if they've lied to me about everything
Right.
else? If this is how they work, if you really look at the history of our so-called free world, and you come back saying America is a great nation, well, you have mental problems. And this is nowhere near the capability. Usually, it's not going to be something that you can fathom. There are exceptions to the rule, obviously, but there's many different, I guess, I hate to say levels. There's really not a lot of terminology for this, but
Right.
as far as being awakened, there are so many levels. I can remember after being put back in my place, because when I was 18 years old and realized the moon landing was fake, of course, I was lied to again and put back into the system of sheep, right back into that assembly line. And then I remember my next thing was like this alien thing with Dan Aykroyd. It was called like Alien Exposure or something. And I was like, well, Dan Aykroyd is, of course, one of the coolest guys ever, because obviously he was in Ghostbusters. So I had to listen to Dan Aykroyd talk to me about aliens and NASA and this giant cover up. So I was like, oh, wow. So aliens are real. Wow. That's what I thought, Well, I mean, once that's not being awake. I'm going to be honest with you. I don't think I was the dumbest guy in the world, but I knew nothing. That was after researching the military industrial complex my whole life and thinking that this was part of that, like it was a big cover up. So, and I knew nothing. So I literally I could know all this knowledge and it was completely useless because my conclusions
Right.
were completely wrong. So I had absolutely no conclusion near reality. So what did I know? I knew nothing. And I was, I was 27 years old and I knew nothing. So there are some people around here that are even younger than that have woken up to flat earth already. And guess what? They don't realize how blessed they are and how much ahead of the game they are. And because they're so happy in a sense, it's almost like they lose direction sometimes, because they're so
Right.
happy that they realize they're on a flat earth, and God bless them, and they should be happy. And God, that is the most important thing. But some of them might have, some of them might be called to help God out in this plan and this deal and this message or whatever it is. But,
Right.
that's the thing, guys. It's not for everybody. And, you're not supposed to always figure out everything. Like people go into the higher consciousness. So there's a lot of things that entail the flat earth, but these Christians, these so-called Christians though, that is actually the fuel. I realized that there was actually a purpose to truth. Once I saw so many Christians lying to me, that actually was the reason for me, Knowledge Scavenger. So I call out, if there's liars, there's liars, and I'm not biased. So.
Right. It's true on a lot of other topics too. Within Christianity, you'll have people who all hate one viewpoint. Christians will lock arms with non-Christians against the pre-trib rapture, for example, and that by itself should be a red flag to say, hey, no, maybe I should look into this, because why does everybody hate it? And people who believe Jesus comes 3.5 years later, we're talking about 3.5 years, will join with all the other people hating the one view that has him come in earliest. And that's it ought to wake people up and say, look, why are you hating on other Christians just because they believe Jesus is coming back a little sooner? It's just unbelievable. It's nonsensical. And so, yeah, that's a good way to see what everybody hates, what they try to silence, find out what the truth is.
Well, yeah, if somebody tells me that he thinks Christ is going to come back next year, I'm going to say, hey, all right, I guess. But I mean, I don't have to agree, but I don't have to discuss it with the person either. Okay, whatever.
Right.
It doesn't have to be my business. I'm not the expert about what other people believe. That's their own belief. If they think God's going to come back or something, okay, well, you got your reason on that. I can guarantee I can't argue that point.
Well, let me just interject quickly with you, Stu. I think Rose fell asleep, or she's eating that beautiful meal she was cooking. When you come across a belief or an assertion or a theory or a concept that you don't believe in, right? Do you guys have the decency to, at the very least, study that of which you don't believe in order to be able to accurately defend what you do believe in? In other words, if I said to you, Knowledge, that I believe women are never going to be as smart as a man, which we know to be ridiculous. However, if I thoroughly believe that and you had the opposing belief, that you would say, no, there are many women that are smarter than men. As a matter of fact, I've done a recent study that would suggest that women are becoming a lot more smarter over the last 100 years. And now there are more smart women in the world than there are smart men. But at the very least, would you have the decency to research my claim in order to substantiate your own and possibly make a switch if the evidence is resonating enough? In other words, if the evidence that I'm suggesting is true, if you look at it and it's undeniable, would you be honest enough to accept that? And if you ended up in a deadlock, would you have the decency to go, well, let's just disagree and I'm going on. I'm moving on.
Oh yeah, I've done that for years and years. I mean, that's a big hot topic, as you know, and I've talked to all sorts of people about it. And most of the time, what I run into is I just say, "Hey, look, Jesus said you should humble yourself," and they're like, "No, there has to be order, or there will be chaos." This is to me bad logic, but I'm like, "Hey, I disagree with your logic here. I disagree with your theology." But the problem comes when the other side won't let you live, won't let you have your convictions. They want to, that by that nature of that topic, some people want to rule over others. You can't coexist with some people who are control freaks. You can't coexist.
Okay.
You can't be in the same community. You have to separate.
Okay. Can you, and I'm going to direct this to Pillbox. And then I want to ask Rose a question if she's available.
I'm
Okay,
here.
so I'm going to ask Pill a question, then I'm going to ask you a specific question. So Pill, and then we're just going to kind of discuss our individual answers here. But Pillbox, if somebody were to come up with a really, really good argument that was undeniable that the world was actually a spinning wet ball, and you know what? The flat earth were wrong. Sorry. Would you concede, and how would you do that?
Yeah, I would absolutely come to a realization that I was wrong and be able to move on. Of course, my four moves would be that I would first look into it for a long time and verify it, though, and that's what we do as flat earthers anyway. So it's a catch-33 issue, because that's the problem we have been asking for from the beginning. We've been asking for one thing, that just give us one thing to even research that helps them in any way, shape, or form. But again, that would be a lot of unwinding. But that's the problem we've been asking for.
Yep. And I think that at the end of Patricia Spears' hangout this evening, Mark Sargent asked a pretty simple question. And it was, I don't need to prove that it's a flat earth. Why don't you, without NASA, prove that we're on a spinning ball? Without NASA. Let's see you do it without NASA. And they can't. They absolutely can't. Okay, so Rose.
Speak.
Rose.
Yeah. Hey, Ren.
I'm not interrupting, am I?
No, somebody just pulled up in the car blasting music, and I go, "Oh my God, great! He's asking me a question. I have to close the window now because it's loud." Okay, go ahead.
Okay. I love this question I'm about to ask you, because it speaks volumes of what it is that we know, of what it is that we have, what it is that we possess, and what it is that we're trying desperately to share to those that do not have what we have. And that is the truth. So here's the question. What would you take in return to go back to knowing nothing you know, and you just become a J.D. Kane, a Jade West, or any of these people, a Hog Tie, an Annabelle Pfeiffer, what would it take for you to just go back to not knowing anything and just being a part of the system and quietly going on about your day? What name the price? What would the price be?
To be honest with you, I'd rather die than to be without the truth. So that's not even an option.
So it's not on your bucket list to be bought back into the system.
There's no way. There's nothing. I'd rather die
than
to go back into the Matrix. No way.
So why
There's
why
no going back, dude. And but
you and I both know that.
Huh?
You and I know that.
Yeah. But back to your other question, you were saying, you have to study everything.
Both sides.
Yeah, all sides. There's different angles of sides too, because you have New Age, you have Christians, you have Luciferians, you have to study all of it.
And you have to be aware of
Hinduism. I had to study all of it. Yeah, I mean, it's not a joke. I mean, how can you be a Christian if you haven't studied almost as many religions as possible? I mean, I studied all of them. That's just the way you find it's just the way you find the truth, is by delving into everything. Evolution. I studied evolution, even though I believe in creation, but I had to study evolution too. I mean, that's only fair. You have to.
Yeah, Preet asked, I don't know if you were in the hangout at the time. I think I was driving. I had it on my phone on the seat listening, but Preet asked a question last night in the hangout, and the question was that she wanted to know how to properly research because she was new to all of this. So in other words, previous post Pizzagate, she had never researched truth. She was a Christian. She believed in Christ. I just seen in a comment feed, she just asked Jade West what makes her think she's a Christian, which I can't wait to see the answer. However, so in Preet's request to know, to be able to have knowledge on how to properly research, what would you give as advice, Rose? What would your advice be to Preet?
Advice to Preet about people trolling her?
No, about researching.
About researching? Research
How
everything.
to okay, that's almost too much for somebody that's never researched. So
okay, well, you delve into one subject. So right now she's working on Pizzagate. So while you're working on Pizzagate, you're going to get names that come up. Then with those names, you need to research those names and those family lines. And then that will lead to secret societies, most likely some kind of banking corporation, something. And then you need to look into those secret societies, those corporations, who's running those, when did those start, what year did they start, who started them. So the only way you get the bigger picture is by looking at every single aspect of that picture. So you don't just look at Pizzagate. You have to break it all down, all of it down. Who's John Prasada, or what's his name?
Podesta.
Who is he? Where does he come from? Who is his family line?
Why is he putting money into the Clinton Foundation?
Yeah, how did he get there? When did he get there?
Who is he? What business is he in?
His family? Yeah, he has a different companies. He's a CEO of the National People something, I forgot, but he has a lot of companies that he's CEO of. So when did he start that? Who's his brother? How many brothers does he have? Does he have any sisters? Who are they? What do they do? What is their role in it? What is their businesses? Who's his mom? Who's his dad? Are they involved in secret societies and military? And what secret society are they involved in? Is it Skull and Bones? Okay, well, when did Skull and Bones start? Who's involved in Skull and Bones?
Okay,
and then those names come up, and that's how you research.
Okay, so just with that
process.
thought,
Sorry.
that thought, yeah, because you did like about 6 months worth of research in one rant. Okay, so
That's how I do it.
I know. So
I can't call something truth unless I break it all down till I cannot break it down anymore.
okay,
And then I'll
so
say, okay, I got it.
you describe the process.
Mhm.
Now knowledge. Obviously, you've done a lot of research. I know Pillbox has as well. Do you guys use a specific formula, meaning spreadsheets, books? You guys write things down on books. You go out and buy notepads that you have, organized where you put, this information in this one, and you just keep files on all the different evidences, researches, or information that you come across, or do you just try to memorize it as you continue to go? Is there a formula or is there a procedure that any of you three use that kind of keeps everything organized so that you can always go back and refer to what you've researched? Knowledge, you go first.
Well, the kind of things I tend to research are not data intensive. What Rose was describing is a data research, collecting information. Mine tends to be theological, philosophical. So what I'm doing is researching ideas, and those are things you have to sit and ponder, and I'll collect maybe some information, I'll collect an article here and there or a link to something or a PDF, and I'll put those in a folder on my computer. And later, I may not look at it for 6 months, and I'll come across something later and go, wait a minute, I've seen this before. And I'll look through my stuff and put it together. And then I'll try to blend those two things. I'll take those two and put it together into a model. Okay. And then I'll put that aside. And then I just collect things, ideas, understandings, those kind of things. So
yeah, because I have a friend, I won't say his name, but he when I woke up 10 years ago, I ran into him. I was buying some Chinese food, and he was in the Chinese restaurant at the time. We were both waiting to do our pickups, and we just started chit-chatting, and all of a sudden this topic came up, this truth. And he was shocked that I was awake, and I was quite happy to come across somebody randomly that was awake. And he invited me to, he owned a farm, and he invited me to his farm. And he went into a room, and he literally had, I'll bet you, 50 to 60 boxes filled with old newspaper clippings, stuff that he had printed off from the public library, information going back 30, 40, 50 years of family bloodlines, the Queen of England, the Queen of Brunei, the Illuminati, Club Rome, Freemason, the Vatican Church. I mean, if there was a subject, and he had been doing this research and collecting this information long before the internet became, the world knowledge base. And the information that he had and the way that he had it all, and he knew where each and every box was. So, because I had asked him, what do you know about Skull and Bones? And he looked around, he found a box. He said, oh, I have it in here. And he had 6 months worth of reading material in that one box, filled with all kinds of everything. I mean, there was nothing he didn't have. He even had a pack of Illuminati playing cards. Wow. So this guy was like as awake as it gets. But he kind of taught me that in research, when you're doing research, it is very important that you have a formula to how you it's like putting a puzzle together. Well, you wouldn't, buy a puzzle and then throw all the pieces in the garbage. No, you have to keep the pieces of the puzzle together so that when you are going to display it to somebody, or you're going to give a lecture or explain a truth to somebody, that you're going to have the information available that you can go boom, 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 boom. So with that being said, Pillbox, I know you've done a lot of study on evolution, creation, science, NASA. There's probably topics that I'm going to probably miss here, but for sure, I know you've done research on the moon landing, And obviously, you've done a great deal of research on flat Earth, which really doesn't require a whole lot of research to kind of wake up to it. But did you put together files, or do you have? Because I saw that you brought out your father's newspaper clippings, everything that he had saved. So I could see that your father was that kind of guy, that he would save information. Are you like that too? Do you have information stored that you can present or go back to or use as kind of a part of putting all this puzzle together?
Yeah, I would say that for me, and I hate to admit this, it was way too easy. I was basically given, or right, yeah, I guess fallen into my lap all the information just by getting a camera and going up to high places and taking the pictures before, so it'd be unbiased before we had talked about the subject, ran with Rose, and I had about a year's worth of photography, and one segment obviously was flying from Phoenix to Seattle and back. And I took a lot of pictures. And I specifically actually bought a device to take pictures at the time for some of these things. And this was before, I thought back then that I thought evolution was a big deal. And I thought I was on some sort of uh, you know, researching the jungles of Africa expedition. So I started going on trips thinking that I'm just going to get into biology and end up taking these pictures of the Earth as I'm doing it, not even thinking anything at all. I actually remember Rand taking these pictures and saying, "Yes, I think I can see the curve. I think it's I think it's out there, but I'm gonna brush it off. Yeah, maybe I'm not quite high enough." Or so I took some pictures here and there, and then it was many months later, about 8 months later, when we started talking about this, I realized that I already had these photos, so I kind of got to go overlook these because I thought I saw a curve, and I remember telling you this. And I hate to admit it, but when you know where you are when you had a camera and you were taking pictures and you can go back to your memory at the time, especially when you did the experiment in an unbiased manner. I didn't go up there saying I'm going to prove it's a flat Earth. So that's for me. I honestly have to admit that God has made this too easy for me. That's why I give all the glory to my Lord and Savior Jesus Christ, because He has just literally given me, which I don't deserve. I don't even deserve this knowledge, but He literally handed it to me without even me knowing it. And that's why, He answered my prayers, and I am at His mercy now because of it. And it has changed my life greatly. It has changed the world around me. And I don't expect it to be easy for everybody else because it was handed to me, and I don't expect everybody to get it handed to. And there's a million other evidences that destroy the heliocentric model anyway, but it was just for me. The first thing you got to do, guys, like Jibby Jedi is doing, he just bought a P900. I would watch out for that guy because I probably will never have anything near that. And he's going out and he's going to do the same thing. I would recommend to anybody to go to high places and take pictures, literally get a grasp of your world. Or the other option is to drive across the desert. And if you're close to the Sahara or Africa, maybe you can get over there, or you can come down here to the Four Corners area, Arizona, New Mexico, Colorado, Nevada, and such, and even California. This is one of the largest deserts in the world out here. And I have to tell you this, Rand, traveling after then, my final being, I traveled all over the Four Corners area for almost 3 years, just checking out sites and going to forests and not finding things I was looking for. But doing that, the final trip was after I had reloaded with my new pair of glasses. And when we drove across the desert, it was a shocking revelation to just drive across the desert and realize that it is obviously flat, and seeing the mountain ranges, which out here it's so flat, you can see them 50 and 60 miles away sometimes, and they don't change if they don't change their trajectory. That is a straight line right out to the center point to those mountains, which should be probably close to 2,000 feet underneath a supposed curve. So right away, that was it for us. It was like we got married all over again on a road trip and saw the flat Earth. So you got to get out there and see the place where you're living, Rand, is my opinion. It has nothing to do with, and there are videos that destroy the ball Earth, that's fine. But if you actually get out there, you will be able to say, yes, I am a flat earther. You won't be afraid of that title, but I don't matter. I'm putting my life on it because it's bigger than me. It's much more important than me. And I'm not afraid to say that it is worth dying for. So.
Well, I would agree And I don't know. I'm just trying to give anybody that would happenstance across this video that would be encouraged to do some research. I would hope that they would do the research correctly, and like Rose said, go through it with a fine-tooth comb. Look at it from every possible presentable angle, because there are many presentable angles, and many different levels. Like I wouldn't, if I was to invite somebody into seeking this truth, I don't think that I would take them to anything but flat Earth right now. I think flat Earth right now is the easiest, and everything else comes easy after that. One sec, my phone.
What's going on, Knowledge Scavenger?
Well, not much to disagree with so far, I would say. Nothing really. It's a matter of having your eyes open just in general to everything, not just Earth shape, but everything that's going on in the world, and just asking the right questions. Asking any questions I'd be happy with for most people. And that's the thing, people don't want to ask questions. They want to just do the hamster wheel.
Well, that's one of the other issues too. It depends on how someone's trying to ask a question. I mean, 9 times out of 10 in the chats, you're getting either robots or people trying to pretend they're making us look stupid when they're just admitting that they have absolutely no idea what they're even asking. Again, they can't explain the question they're asking usually. So, right away, okay, well, I hate to admit it, but if it's such a waste of time. It's usually just better off saying, usually just using the wrench and getting rid of them. To be honest with you, there's so many scoffers out there. But I have my fair share of quotes. I'm sure that if anybody needs to copy and paste them, they're out there. I've had probably a couple thousand of them that I've had to do. So I am able to be a chat board messenger just like the next guy, and I understand how it's out there for the person using the keyboard. It is very frustrating because, of course, we know that these people would not talk to you this way in real life. So I think that's what it really comes down to, Knowledge Scavenger. I think that's one of the big issues, that if you were to talk to these people in a real life sense, they just wouldn't act this way. They wouldn't be approaching onto you in such a manner. They wouldn't be they would, I guarantee it, be very different. And I think that's the biggest problem, why this is such a battle constantly, and why there's so many arguments. It's because these scoffers, who are, of course, know-it-all geniuses, because of television, that are scoffing at this truth, come in that method, in that sense, and that they can't help it but to take advantage, because they're hiding behind their computer, to approach onto you in a manner they wouldn't in real life. So that's the biggest problem, and why there's so much fighting.
Yeah, and it's been going on, long before YouTube, of course, when, people were doing everything by text. They could hide very well then, even better than they can hide now. And so this is an old problem, but people used to do that, writing letters to editors in newspapers. They would do the same thing. And although most newspapers, after a while would say, okay, we have to verify your identity, you have to have a real phone number or address, and they would know who they were. But the problem now is that the only people who know who you are the people who shouldn't, being the powers that be, the Googles and Facebooks and all that. And they are the kind of people who would employ others to go out with their masks on and wreak havoc on people. So we've got another dimension of it that we haven't had really in history before, to this degree and volume that we have now, because everybody's faceless. You don't know where they are. You don't know who they are, whether they're even human. And I don't think the world has ever faced a problem like that before in our memory.
Wow. Yeah, you're right. Well said. That is why it is called a war. And these people
Yes.
don't realize it. This is a war, and it is not just your life on the line. Your soul is on the line. This is the big one. Hate to tell you guys. Wow.
Yeah, it's much more complicated than it's been before. Of course, we don't know, we're going by the history we're told. And sometimes you can find the real thing. You can find, they can't hide everything. We've seen that over and over, that, none of us would be here if they were perfect at hiding the truth. It's always discoverable, but you do have to work for it. And when it comes to the past, we still have enough artifacts and things that tell us at least we know we've been lied to, and try to piece it together the best we can. And there are people holding, it's just like with a jigsaw puzzle, there's some bullies that have taken some key pieces and hid them away, so you can't ever complete the puzzle, and that's why this is also a supernatural battle, because there's just things that we can't get outside of. There are not enough of us, and we're not devious like they are.
But I think that's where God comes in.
Yes, exactly.
Right? I think that God is so beautiful. I mean, just the way things have been unfolding. And don't get me wrong when I make this next statement. I am by no stretch leaning any hopes in Donald Trump. But I know that in Scripture, God spoke through a donkey. I also know that he spoke through a burning bush. And he wrote to us through his disciples, the apostles, right? So I trust that God is doing something right now. I can feel it. I can see it. I'm witnessing it. I'm observing it. And I thoroughly believe that whether Donald Trump likes it or not, God will use his loose tongue, quite possibly his explosive ego, to divulge informations that we need, in it with a voice that is going to carry a whole lot of weight and reach a long distance. So I just, although there are pieces that are missing, and I agree, I believe that those pieces have been put into place by God. That certain informations are going to come out, and when those informations come out, it's going to be unstoppable. It is literally going to be like the Pandora box that the lid was ripped off it. You look at this issue with the Pizzagate. Do you know how many people have woken up now? Okay, so we were waiting for the next 9/11, right? So the truther community, although there was a lot of us that were awake a little bit before, and some of us a lot further ahead of 9/11, like Rose Patton. She's been awake long. It didn't take 9/11 to wake her up, but 9/11 woke up a whack load of people. I mean, that was the Achilles heel to the New World Order. And then we waited. How long has it been since then? Has it been 15 years? I don't know the dates. 17, 16 years, right? And we've been waiting and waiting and waiting and waiting for that next big thing. All of these, there was Sandy Hook. That woke up quite a bit of people. Boston bombings, that woke up. But we didn't have that great big 9/11. And I honestly believe that this Pizzagate is that 9/11. It's going to literally wake up that type of numbers. And then when Donald Trump gets into office, if he gets there, I think he's going to kick a lot of doors open. And I don't think he's going to be doing it outside of it being controlled opposition. But at the same time, I thoroughly believe he's got an ego. He's going to run his mouth. He's going to unleash information. Don't forget, this is the guy that was going after Obama for the birth certificate. This is the guy that was calling Hillary every name in the book, and that she's a thief and a corrupt criminal, and she needs to go to jail. So it isn't beneath him to explode information. And so what I would say is this, is that if anybody is looking to do this type of investigation where they're looking to become knowledgeable, that now is the perfect time to do it. And if you are going to do it, I would say the flat earth is probably a really good place to start, because it's the quickest learn. Once I would argue that if you look at flat earth with an open mind, 2-3 days max, and you're not going back to a ball Earth. Yeah, can I get an agreement there for Pillbox?
Yeah, it shouldn't take that long. It really shouldn't.
2-3 days max, I say. What do you think, Rose?
Yeah, that's taking your time kicking and screaming and being and having a temper tantrum and just being a complete effeminate douchebag the entire time for 3 days. Just ask Johnny. Didn't take him long.
Yeah, it took me, honestly. Well, I already knew. I knew 10 years ago that I wasn't on a spinning wet ball. I just instinctively was walking down the street one day and observed internally that I was not on a spinning wet ball. I just knew it. I looked up into the skies, and then I imagined myself looking down at myself. So I took my imagination as far up as I could to be able to look down and see myself standing exactly where I was. And as I imagined that observation, I realized I was standing still. And nothing beneath my feet was moving. And it was peaceful. And so for me, it was literally a matter of a few quick thoughts, a couple of books, a couple of reads, just a little look here. I look at this first, look at that first, go to the scriptures, talk to people. And yeah, it was just for me, my observations led me to my common sense, which put me on a flat earth. But I would say for anybody that's going to do a research, and if you don't choose flat earth as your first topic, if it doesn't intrigue you, and maybe Pizzagate does, maybe the Illuminati does, maybe researching the Vatican, which is unbelievable. That's a heck of a research. Or maybe you just want to study something simple like HARP. HARP is a machine that manipulates weather. They have, I believe, they had 2 of them in the world. I think they have more than 2 now. Rose would probably know better than me. They might be up to 5 by now, but it's a machine where they can literally alter and manipulate weather, cause earthquakes, and send tsunamis to countries. And it sounds crazy, but they do it by bouncing energy off the ionosphere, and they can literally direct it and bounce it into any country. With that being said, that's a good study. The Federal Reserve, that's a good study. Skull and Bones, I don't know, the royal family out of Britain, that'll wake you up quick and in a hurry. There are so many topics. DUMBs, deep underground military bases. You could get into clones and take a research, take a couple of months and research clones. You could research the music industry and how a lot of lower level Hollywood stars start off being prostitutes in that industry, literally, where they are prostituted out to multi-billionaires and people with a lot of power. And that's how they're able to get their television commercials and covers of magazines and cologne. Anytime you see a movie star or a celebrity come out with their own perfume or their own cologne, there was a big price they paid for that. You see a lot of the younger celebrities. I did a study on this where they do the active. It's like a pimple cream. What's it called? Proactive pimple cream cleanser. You've seen them all the young, from Britney Spears, Justin Bieber. They all end up doing that particular product, and they do a commercial on it where they go to people's houses and knock on the door, and then the young kids answer the door, and they're all freaked out that, oh my God, Britney Spears, and they're giving out free bottles of this Proactive. That's also a part of their initiation, and a part of, they get that as they go up the different levels in their Illuminati acceptance. With that being said, the studies are forever. There's so much you could study. I would be hard pressed to find a topic I probably haven't studied. I haven't studied them all thoroughly, meaning that I didn't spend 10 years deep into research on one particular subject. I'm kind of like Rose, where I study it until I've studied it thoroughly enough to know that it is what I know it to be. And I have a lot of information that I have stored that I can always refer back to. So my advice would be to anybody that's looking to do a study. These are three very qualified individuals: Rose, Knowledge, and as well Pillbox. And they're the type of people that would be very open to you contacting them, and they would be very open to helping you.
I was going to say that. I was going to extend my hand out and say, if you have something you need help with, or you need help, where to start or how to get through a subject, feel free to contact me, private message me. And, as long as you're genuine, and I'll know if you're genuine or not, I'll help you as long and how as much as I need to, or you need, for sure.
Yeah, and I think the same could be said for Pillbox and as well Knowledge. I have an issue. I don't do one-on-one wake-ups. I've done them, and I don't do them anymore unless you bring me research. If you bring me some research you've done and you go, Rand, I did all this research. Can you help me sort through it? Can you explain this to me? Can you explain? Then I will sit down with anybody that brings me their research. But if you step up to me and ask me to do the research for you, ask me to prove things that you have no intention of accepting as evidence, you're just trolling. I've been there, done that. It's not going to happen. I have no time. Literally, I have zero time and zero tolerance for irritants. If you're going to be an irritant, don't bother. I'm not interested. But anyways, Knowledge. So you've been at this for quite some time. What is your favorite study you've done? The one that held you up late at night, the one that kept you up the latest. What was the topic? What was the study that got you to just really brought you to your feet?
Any study or conspiracy necessarily?
Well, seeing as this is a truther channel, let's stick with something in the truther spectrum.
Okay. Well, I'm going to say it was 9/11 and then Flat Earth, because those were the two big ones, the two that I watched video after video after video on. Because once you get an idea, you're faced with some big paradigm shift. You have to you can't get enough of it. You have to, it's eating away at your mind, and you have to go, wait a minute. I have to know if this is true or false. I'm going to watch everything I can get my hands on. So I would say those two things.
Yeah, I would say as well, because Flat Earth is a kick in the face. I refer it to as being pepper sprayed. I mean, if there is a truth that will shock you, and people just like pepper spraying people right in the face, man. You can't even put those two words in the same sentence. I can't even say, yeah, I was walking around this earth and stopped off to grab myself a flatbread sandwich, and people just snap. You can't. They don't even want to hear flat and earth in the same sentence. And if you approach people with that topic, if you just randomly say, "Hey, can I talk to you for a minute?" They're like, "Yeah, about what?" Flat Earth. You're not on a spinning wet ball. People go ballistic. It is literally, it breaks people. It does something to the psyche. It's like Pillbox said, it's a psychosis. These people are literally imprisoned by this. What a magnificent job they did with that. I mean, I know about all the other deceptions, but just that one. Whoever was orchestrating this, I'm sure, we've got, Galileo and all of these so-called super intelligent people that put all this together. this deception. But if they were around today and were able to see what it's done to people, the psychosis it's caused, I got to give it to them. What a magnificent job of deceiving humanity. They did one heck of a job. I mean, this is so embedded into the psyche of people. They fly right off the handle at the very concept, at the very idea. It's almost as if they have flown to outer space themselves and looked down and saw a spinning wet ball. That's how psychotic they get when you approach them with that's not the truth. So what do you think, Pillbox? What would be the topic that brought you, that kept you up the latest? Because there's that one topic where, you start studying it, and then, you go to bed, you're laying there, toss, turn, toss. You go, okay, you get a thought, and then you go back to the computer, and you got to go figure out this, and it just, what was that topic for you?
Well, yeah, I guess that was it. The azimuthal equidistant map. I realized as soon as I moved down south here, just north of Mexico, I was going to build some sort of small circle with some bricks and some dirt real quickly. So when I got here, I got some tools and some shovels, and I built a 21-foot wide azimuthal equidistant map that was almost true north, 11.25 degrees off by one segment. So there's 32 bricks, and number 1 heading west, 17 heading east. So very easy for me. What I did was I made it so that I would be able to walk outside, get inside the circle, and go, okay, well, this is okay. I understand this constellation right now. I'm looking northwest. At night a few months ago, it was the Big Dipper. And then it goes away eventually, and now I'm looking at Orion and Sirius. And of course, the entire time, the only thing that you can continue to look at all the time from obviously almost anywhere is Polaris. So understanding where Polaris is, constantly getting my bearings. I spent many nights. It took me about 2 months to build the thing. And it's been one of the greatest understandings I've ever done for myself. So I've given my ability, and I needed it because I needed to make sure that, how men have bad directions, Rand? Well, this solves that problem for men that have really bad
Not
directions.
really, but I know some do, yeah.
Yeah. Most men, especially Americans, they have really bad directions. So you build one of these, that problem goes right out the window.
Yeah, I have a driver, so I don't need to know directions. And here in the Dominican, I refuse to drive. But I understand. So that was the one that because I could see where that would really, because I know you like to build and you like to tinker and you like to play and you like to fix things and you want to prove to yourself that you haven't gone crazy. So that would be amazing. That's amazing. What are you looking at there? The moon? Okay, so Rose.
Hey,
What
Ren.
up, Rose? What's going on?
Hey, what's up, man?
What kept our dear friend Rose in the books? What was your nose grind? What was the one where no matter how tired you were, you just could not stop researching it? What was I'm actually really interested with you. What was it?
To be honest with you, it's I just love knowledge. So I just love the truth. And so everything keeps me up all night long in the books and researching, to be honest with you, everything. But the one that really sparked me at the very beginning was Bohemian Grove, because I didn't know anything about secret societies. I didn't know anything about that. So when I first found out about Bohemian Grove, I was like, what is this? With the big owl and they're praying to Moloch and the mock sacrifice. And I was just like, and then the presidents, and before they're even presidents, you see Nixon and Reagan sitting at a table before even Reagan was president. Yeah. And you go, what is this? And Jimmy Carter was part of that, and Bush's, and I was just like, this is wild. And so I started, then I found out, then that brought me into Skull and Bones, and that brought me into Freemasons, and then that brought me into the Jesuits, and then blah, blah, blah. So that was the real kick one right there, was Bohemian Grove. That Really, really. I suggest anyone start look into Bohemian Grove. Really.
Yeah,
And
that
then
was
you
a big one
learn
with
about
me.
the homosexuals and the snuff films and the pedophile. All that's happening at Bohemian Grove. So all the
And
topics come
Kissinger.
out from there. All of it, man. All of it.
Henry Kissinger and his sick, twisted. I mean, that guy is just so nasty to look at. I mean, when you
They're
understand.
goblins. They're like
Oh,
pumpkins.
when you
Reminds me of
read about
pumpkins.
that guy, when you
Yeah.
read about that guy and you look at him, it's like it's not even hard to believe. So for me, the thing,
Soros.
and I'm like you. I mean, I've done some studies, right? For me, the one that really ate at me, I mean, like this ate at me, man. I just couldn't accept it. I researched it as a way to just heal myself. This is how hurtful this study I did. It literally crushed me. I was at my daughter's house a couple of years ago, and I was just sitting there listening to the kids playing, and you know, I've got some grandkids, so I don't know. The one granddaughter, I think she was like 8. The grandson was like 6, and the other granddaughter was like 13. And they were dancing and singing and putting on kind of like, you know how kids are, putting on skits and dance shows, and they were singing a song and dancing to it. And the lyrics of the song, I had to actually get them to stop and play it again so I could catch the lyrics. The lyrics were to the respects of a hotel room and all night long, and other words I'm not going to talk about. But the kids were singing this song and twerking and doing all of these dances that I thought, for me, maybe I'm old fashioned, but I thought they were a little too sexual for children. So I asked my daughter, who is how can I describe Shannon? She's beautiful, but she likes that ghetto life. She and there's nothing wrong with it. She actually loves that life. She likes being in the hood. She likes hanging around drug dealers. She likes, you know, hearing guns go off outside of her house every night. That's the life she loves. She doesn't have to live that life, but I said, if you want me to, you know, buy you a house, where would you want me to buy it? She said, don't buy me a house. Just help me renovate this one. My rent's only $140 a month. And so she's just that she likes that. And so the kids are in that kind of environment. But with that being said, after listening to this music and saying to my daughter, are you hearing what they're singing? Like, are you getting this? And she goes, what? I go, well, listen to it. So they rewound it. I said, listen to the words. And she was like, oh, yeah, well, what am I going to do? That's the music of today. I'm going to tell my kids they can't have fun. They can't listen to music. And so I started researching the Beyoncés and the Rihannas and the Jay-Z's. And I started researching the Kanye Wests. And I started researching the Eminems.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And holy... I can't swear, but somebody can say the F word for me. Mm-hmm. I literally, I was so hurt that not because of what they were doing or that they had sold their souls, but that there was literally no way of stopping children all over the world from being consumed by these lyrics, by this music, and by these people that have an agenda and that are influencing. Mm-hmm. And so for me, that study was the one that kept me up. Sometimes 2-3 nights in a row, I wouldn't sleep. And you know what I mean? Like I would sit at my desk with my jaw on the floor. I was like, how do you come to this as a human being? That like there's a song by Kanye West, Jay-Z's in it, Nicki Minaj, and it's called Monster.
Menage a trois, I thought you were going to say.
Yeah, that's what every time I think about, that's what I want. I'm sure that's what she wants us to say. But and if you've never heard the lyrics to the song Monster or watched the video, I think Chris Light Brown is in it too. But if you've never listened to the lyrics of that particular video, that song, I would encourage you to do so. It is so vile and so insane that I don't even know where to begin to ask the question, how is this possible that this is okay in mainstream music, in secular music, that mothers are literally turning up the radio for these little kids? Because I watched a video during this time of study where there was a song by Christina Aguilera, and it was called Genie in a Bottle. And if you've done a study on that song, you understand what it is. It's about taking, a virginity from a girl.
I got the lyrics to Monster. You want me to read them?
Yeah, let me just finish this story. At any rate,
sorry.
So in this video, I see the two girls dancing to the song and the mother turning it up and singing with them. And if you heard the lyrics to that song, there's no reason for a mother to be singing that song with her little 10-year-old daughters. At any rate, go ahead and play the song, the lyrics to Monster.
So I apologize for my language. I'm reading and going, whoa. Okay, these are the Monster lyrics featuring Kayon, I don't even know how to say his stupid name, Rick Ross, Nicki Minaj. All right. I shoot the lights out, hide till it's bright out. Well, just another lonely night. Are you willing to sacrifice your life? Bitch, I'm a monster, no good bloodsucker. Fat motherfucker, now look who's in trouble. As you run through my jungles, all you hear is rumbles. Kanye West sample, here's one for example. Gossip, niggas got, just stop it. Everybody knew I'm a motherfucking monster. I need to see your fucking hands at the concert. I'm gonna need to see your fucking hands at the concert. Profit, nigga, I got it. Everybody knows I'm a motherfucking monster. I'm gonna need to see your fucking hands at the concert. Again, I'm gonna need your fucking hands at the best living or dead, hands down. The best living or dead, hands down, huh? Let's talk more head right now, huh? And my eyes more red than the devil is, and I'm about to take it to another level, bitch. Don't matter who you go and get, ain't nobody as cold as this. Do the rap and the track, triple, double, no assist. And my only focus is staying on some bogus shit. Arguing with my older bitch, acting like I owe her shit. I heard the beat, the same raps that give the track pain. Brought the chain that always give me back pain. Fucking up my money, so I had to act sane. Wow. Try nigga, but these hoes love my accent. She came up to me and said, this is the number to dial. If you want to make it number one, you're number two now. This, that goose and Mally, I call it Mally Balawi. I don't know. Oh, GD, I'm not going to say that word. Yeezy, how I hit him with a new style. Know that motherfucking well that what you going to do now, whatever, ever I want to do, gosh, it's cool now. Not, oh my God, that's so stupid. Think your motherfucker really real need to cool out because you will never get on top of this. So mommy, best advice is to get on top of this. Ooh. Have you ever had sex with a pharaoh? I put the, oh, I don't want to say that. The, let's see, in a Syracuse. Now she climbing, I bruise her a spot. I don't want to say these things. Head of the class, and she just want to swallow ship. I'm living the future, so the present is my past. My presence is a presence. Kiss my ass. Whoa, wow, this is really vulgar. I'm gonna skip some, cause okay. I'll kill a block. I murder avenues. Murder in black convertibles. Sorry. I still.
That's
wow.
Jay-Z's part.
Rape and privilege a village, women and children. So, okay, killing and raping and privileging a village, women and children. Everybody want to know what my Achilles heel is. Love, I don't get enough of it. All I get is these vampires and bloodsuckers. All I see is these niggas I made millionaires, miling out, spilling their feelings in the air. All I see is these fake fuckers with no fangs, trying to draw blood from my icy cold veins. I smell a massacre. Seems to be the only way to back you bastards up. And then, wow. Crap, I feel crazy saying this stuff. Yeah, it's pretty bad. It keeps going and going and going.
Yeah.
Really, really nasty. Really. And that was really bad.
And these are the people that the
I'm gonna have to pray on
Obamas.
this one later.
Yep, ma'am. These are the people that the Obamas say are good influences. These are the artists. These are the artists that are conditioning our generation. These are the people that are whispering in our children's ears. So when you see your kids out in the parking lot, bobbing their head to music with their earpieces in from their cell phones, this is the type of stuff they're listening to. These are the people whispering in the ears of children today.
Wow. Okay, I gotta stop reading this. Whoa. Okay. I'm out of here. Thanks. Sorry about that, people.
It's cold, man. And so, yeah, that study for me, because it's closely associated to what's most influential in the world today. I think the most influential thing in the world today is music. And we don't even know what our children are listening to. Most people see their kids with their earphones on. And that's why earbuds and headsets are so popular. And because you don't get to hear what your kids are listening to. You don't get to hear it. Nobody knows what's being whispered in these children's ears because they have headsets on. And so I said to my daughter, after doing, several months of this research, I went by to visit her and I said, Shannon, just out of curiosity, if you looked out your window and saw a couple of older people whispering in I have a grandson, his name is Malachi. I said, if you've seen a couple of people whispering in Malachi's ear outside your door, would you go out and ask what they were saying? And she said, yeah, of course I would. I said, so why don't you ever put on the headset when he's walking around bobbing his head? Why don't you ever take the headset off him and put it on your head so that you can hear what's being whispered into his brain? And she obviously didn't answer. But with that being said, that was the hardest research I had to do when I realized the greatest influence in the world today is satanic.
Yeah, that's the red pill.
Yeah, that was a hard one for me, brother, because, and now watch, and I used to love the Eagles. Between us four and everybody that watches this video, I used to love the Eagles. Don Henley, my Lord, Joe Walsh, Glenn Fry. I just loved the Eagles. It was like, to me, if you don't know from a secular understanding, the Eagles, to me, are the most perfect band. Every single, from the bass player all the way to Don Henley, all of them can play every single instrument, not just well, unbelievably well. Every single member of the band sings, writes music, not just kind of, no, unbelievably well. They harmonize ridiculously well. And when they put on a concert, each and every one of them are perfectionists. So when they put on a concert, when they write a song like Hotel California, when they do a song like New Kid in Town, or they do a song like Desperado, it's perfect. I mean, you can't deny the Eagles' music is just literally, when you listen to it, you can't find a flaw in their music. And so I was a huge Eagles fan. And after doing this research, I had bought a few years earlier their reunion concert in Australia, Melbourne, Australia. I think the DVD, it was a 2 DVD set, HD, unbelievably beautiful concert. And I think it was called Eagles Reunion, Melbourne, Australia. So I was every Saturday for a couple of years. I mean, I'm a pretty organized guy, and I kind of have some ritualistic behaviors. And one of those ritualistic behaviors was that I would do a lot of paperwork on a Saturday morning at my kitchen table with my coffee for my business, and I would put that DVD in, and glance over at the big screen TV, and it would be playing, and I had surround sound, so it sounded amazing, and I would put that on every Saturday, and loved it. Like, people would come to my house and be like, "Oh, there's Rand listening to his Eagles," and after doing this research, I had never heard this before, and I had watched this DVD. I'll bet you I had watched this DVD 300, 400, 500 times. And all of a sudden, just before my favorite song, which is New Kid in Town, because when I grew up in an orphanage, I wasn't allowed to listen to music. And the very first time I ever turned on a radio in my life, I was taken to a new group home outside of the orphanage. I was brought into this group home, and they said I could play the radio. I was shocked. And I said, okay. So I turned it on. And the very first song that came on was by the Eagles, and it was called New Kid in Town, of which that's what I was. So anyways, I love that song. So here I am one Saturday after all this research, and I'm listening to the Eagles, and Glenn Fry gets on the microphone, and he says these words. This is a song we wrote during our Satan worshiping years. And I stopped, and I went, what? I went over to the DVD player, I rewound it, and it said, this is a song that we wrote during our Satan worshiping years. And I took the DVD set, I took it out, put it back in its box, and I gave it to a friend of mine, and I have never listened to them since. That was, for me, Pillbox, a devastating Saturday. I'll never forget it as long as I live.
Man, that's a good one. That reminds me of the Beatles expose that didn't hit me too much, but my dad was a big Beatles fan, so that's why I looked into it. He had grown up obviously showing me, he was a baby boomer. He was born in 45, so I got to hear whatever dad wanted. He already had his other two kids, and I listened to his music, and that Beatles thing for me, that was the last will and testament of George Harris. I think would be that level of shocking. But yeah, you must have got hurt though. I know what it's like to be into the musical
no,
scene
it was
kind of deal.
You know what it was? It was a moment of I had to get out of the world. That was my escape of still being in and of the world. And the Lord just showed me that you don't belong in this world. This is not good. And as hard as it was, I got up, and that DVD set was like, that was my favorite thing in the house. I think I liked it more than I liked my wife at the time. But I just had to come to the conclusion that it's all garbage. And then I was sitting at my friend's house I forget, maybe a year or so later. I was visiting a buddy of mine, and on the radio was a song, She's Gone. You know that song? She's gone, oh, you know that song, Rose? Sing it for me. She's gone. You know that song? She's Gone. I think it's by who is that by? Let me think.
Hall & Oates, I think.
Hall & Oates. Thank you, my dear. You're 100% right. And there's a lyric in that song. I'm going to tell you a lyric in that song, and I want you to tell me if you knew it was there. Because it was playing at my friend's house, who was semi-awake, and he's a Christian. And so when I heard it, I went, oops, Artie, did you hear that? And he goes, no. And I ended up, telling him, okay, we're going to hear it again. And it was said again in the song. And I go, did you hear it now? He goes, yeah. I never heard that in the song before. I've known this song for 20 years. I don't remember ever hearing that. And here's a lyric. Here's a line in that song. Are you ready? She's gone. It's going to take the devil to replace her.
Yeah, I've heard that. I know.
Right?
I remember that. Mm-hmm.
Right? So it says it right in the song. She's gone. Oh, it's going to take the devil to replace her. She's gone. And I realized when I heard that, it's all of it. I don't care. It is all infected. Satan has put his fingertips on all of it. Somehow, some way, all of it. And so for me, that was the roughest study. I don't do it as much anymore. I mean, sometimes I'll catch myself looking at, because I seen Jay-Z did that song with who's the black girl? They sang New York City, New York State of Mind. I just did a video on it not long ago, but she became a Satanist, and at the end of the concert, she puts up the devil horns and looks over at Jay-Z, and he smiles and nods at her, and you can see that he had recruited her, like he did Rihanna and Beyonce and Kanye West and a number of them. But it's nasty. That's a pretty heavy, because that's when you do that study, you have to give up your world. You have to give up life. You have to realize there's two worlds. There's their world, and then there's being in the will of God, and they're not the same. I don't belong here. I don't belong in this world at all.
Right, exactly. That's the way it should be for every Christian. You don't belong in this world, but everybody loves it too much. I remember when in my teens, I had all the Led Zeppelin albums. I had Emerson, Lake and Palmer, all those. And eventually I finally, for whatever reason, understood what the lyrics were. At the first you think, rock bands just do silly lyrics, meaningless chatter just to sing a song. And then you go, wait a minute. Now I'm old enough to understand what they're saying, and I had to get rid of all that stuff, and I went to mostly instrumental music. It was still rock, but it was instrumental. And you just have to do that. You come to a point and go, okay, I'm either going to keep listening to this garbage, or I'm going to get rid of it, even though high quality music, I love the music, but I had to give it up. I had to get rid of it.
It's harsh, eh? Like, I mean, what?
Yeah.
That, I think, okay, so now we're on to a pretty good little part of our hangout here. Just a sec. What was the hardest for you to give up? Because did you give up some friends? Did you give up some, did you become a vegetarian because you researched the meat industry? Did you have to give up drugs? Did you have to, give up family members? Is there anything, what was the hardest thing you had to give up?
Me personally, for as far as the music and stuff is concerned, I didn't really lose that much, because I never really hung around with the people who are really into that stuff, that kind of lifestyle. But for other things, like as time goes on, you find out things about the meat industry and whatever. It's like, what? I can't have bacon anymore. I still haven't given that up. But I wouldn't say there was a big cost for me personally on that, other than, after a while it does get easier, actually. The more you get in the habit of saying, I'm living by my convictions, and if something has to go, it has to go. If you keep practicing that, it does get easier.
What did you have to give up, Rose? Is there anything that you had to let go, whether it was a good friend, a family member, a belief, a crutch, something that you thoroughly enjoyed of the world that you just had to come to the conclusion of, it doesn't fit in this new reality of mine? Or were you able to kind of keep a lot of things, but remain protected in the truth with your relationship in Christ, and at the same time still be able to manage to live in this world, although knowing you don't belong here. Explain your process for me. Did you understand the question, Pillbox?
No, I did not. I'm sorry. I just walked away. I apologize. I thought you were talking to Rose.
Well, I was, but apparently she walked away.
Good. What happened now? Let's go ahead.
What have you had to give up?
Oh yeah, I heard it. Yeah, I had to give it my entire family up for the most part, and even my longest term friends actually, and it had its moments, yeah, and it is what it is. So
Yeah, I've had to give up friends, family. I've had to give up, music. Obviously, I don't think there's any music I listen anymore unless it's worship music. Unless it's about the Lord, I don't listen to music. I don't watch television at all. I have no TV. I don't watch movies. I don't watch television shows. I don't watch sports. I used to be a huge hockey fan and a boxing fan, and I don't watch any of that anymore. I just came to terms with the fact that anything that is so influential that has got people drawn to it in great numbers, that would represent the world to me. And I don't want to be attracted to anything that the world is attracted to. That doesn't mean that others need to be like that. It just means that I've just come to that place where I'm just not attracted to what the world's attracted to at all. You couldn't name something that I would be attracted to that would resemble the world in any kind of way. Now, somebody might say, "Oh, well, you own businesses. Clearly, you're of the world." Well, no, I'm not attracted to my business. I hate my business. I can't stand that I own businesses. I would rather not have to own them. I do have family and people that need my support. So I'm I'm not going to become a welfare recipient. I'm not going to go to the Dominican Republic here and ask them to support me, which would never happen. They don't have that here, and I'm certainly not going to become a panhandler. Panhandlers here in the Dominican, I don't think they do very well. So I own businesses, but I don't love them. I don't care about them. I care about them just enough to keep them legitimate and working. But no, there's nothing in this world I like. I don't like any of it. I can't stand to see people's obsessions with technology. I can't stand to see obsession with clothing and movie stars and celebrities and music and sports. I can't stand it. It makes me cringe. I have Christian friends that think LeBron James is like the greatest basketball player ever to hit, a hardwood floor. And I'm like, okay, but he's a Satanist. And I've actually had Christians who love basketball so much that when I tell them that, they're like, oh, I don't care. He's still a great basketball player. And so the obsession with the ways and this world, I can't do it. I just can't. So for me, I gave it all up. If the answer for me is going to be correct, I can't think of anything I haven't given up.
yeah, it's hard to let go. We've been brainwashed with that idea as well to try to get as much as you can, and and it's a materialistic society, and I don't know. I wonder what keeps these internet hero Christians though, Rand, from being able to just be a man, and like these one way down a dead ends and the Samdela effects and just these crazies. What do you do with these people?
Okay, my wife is home. I'll be back.
I heard.
You hear the horn?
Yep.
Yeah, you got to what it is that drives a person to troll or fight all the time, or as I don't know if it was in which hangout it was. We were talking about Calvin and Servetus, and some of the people who follow them even today making absolutely evil, wicked jokes about like having turkey Servetus for Thanksgiving, and what that means. I think you explained you didn't know much about, or somebody didn't know much about Servetus, but it's like, what makes people? I mean, I know atheists who are not that bad, and yet we have these Christians acting worse than unbelievers. And this is exactly one of the things that Paul wrote to in 1 Corinthians 5 about somebody who was acting worse than an unbeliever. And the people were proud of their tolerance and proud of their love. God is a loving God and will accept anybody and anything. And they were lambasted by Paul for being so stupid and being so worldly. They take a simple concept like love to such an extreme and twist it so bad that it looks like hate. And they don't consider love for God. They don't consider that somebody does get hurt. God gets hurt. And we have that still going on. And you just got to wonder, it's like, what happened to you that you feel so obsessed with just harassing other Christians and attacking, clawing at them all the time and stalking them? I just don't get it. There's something terribly wrong with that. Terribly wrong with, even if these people really are Christians, who knows whether they are, but they claim to be. What got into them to make them like that? I just don't get it. And there's so many of them.
It's a big issue, and they have exposed themselves. And I'm about at that point where we're starting to block more people. I hate to do that, but you just don't have time for them anymore. Usually the atheist ones will run off, but once in a while you got to block one of them. But some of these Christian ones just it's almost it's a bigger insult because they're telling me that the Bible is something it's not. I don't know how to read it. Apparently, I'm stupid. I can't read this. Some idiot today made a thing about Joshua 10, and I said, "You've got to be kidding me. You can please don't even pretend in any way that anybody in their right mind that has 2 cents to rub between their ears is going to say Joshua 10, that's specifically 12 through 14 is going to help a ball earth model at all. I mean, right. I mean, it says it says stop the sun and moon stop, sun's in the midst of heaven, and over Ajalon and Gibeon. It's, the redundancy, and then there's 2 specified locations where the sun and moon stops over. You're committing a mental suicide if you say something like that. So he's done for. Like, that guy just you can't help him.
Right. It gets to the reinterpretation gets desperate to the point of absurdity. And that's why people have to study the Bible. You can't take any writing and just surface skim it. You can take personal letters written in the Civil War era and totally misunderstand them if you don't know they were written during the Civil War. And in the same way, I don't care what writing it is, people can't understand what each other's writing here in chats half the time. In message boards, you see it all the time. People always are misunderstanding what somebody else typed. And so it should come as no surprise that the Bible doesn't come with a reader that tells you what to think of it, because it's a writing. It isn't perfect. We don't have sign language, and not perfect in the sense of writing in general, not that the Bible isn't perfect, but that's the whole thing, is people want the Bible to be so simplistic, and the Bible itself says some bad things about simpletons in Proverbs. It's not for the simple. And you have to think, and when you come across something that says the sun stood over a certain spot on the earth, how does that even work with a spinning ball that's going around the sun, that's going around the universe, the galaxy, and has a bunch of planets trailing it behind it, like mosquitoes chasing you, when you're outside.
Oh, that's a good point. We always forget the traffic jam of 9 other planets now
Yeah.
behind that problem. I didn't think of that. Yeah, no, of course we don't mention because it's not our theory, but if just right away, as soon as you just start talking about their model, it's brain damage is what it is.
Yeah, I don't know
Well,
how. Go ahead.
we've all been there. We've all not known. We've all been there.
Right, but when I
Gotta
came
be
across
fair.
something like that, like for instance, reading Genesis and Genesis 1, Creation Week, and it dawns on you. I still remember one day I was in my mom's living room going, wait a minute. It says the sun, moon, and stars are in the firmament, and the waters are above the firmament. I couldn't make sense of it. I said, well, the best I could do to try to stretch it around what I believed to be true at the time was that there must be ice surrounding the universe. But this still did not explain how that water fell to the earth from the edge of the universe. And I was totally befuddled by that. And then I finally came around to, it got a little older and understood that that geocentrism is a thing, and that eventually then that the universe can't be that big, and one by one the dominoes fell. But it's the point is that you read this stuff and you at least puzzle about it. Most people don't. They just gloss right over it. I don't understand that kind of attitude.
Yeah, that's my gripe is when they try to turn it around on me, which is very insulting. Listen, the best you can do is say it's allegorical, but don't tell me that stopping over Gibeon and Ajalon, if you just you could probably have a kid draw this up with some crayons. With a paper towel roll, we can probably, kind of draw this
Right.
up. If it's the sun and moon are stopping over 2 specified cities. Well, if I look at a map, an azimuthal equidistant map of the world, the one the Navy and Air Force have to use. If I look at this map, I guarantee it would be literally like, if the map's 3 feet wide, it would be like putting, one of those tacks on the map. You're talking about, and that's probably giving it way too much land. That tiny of an area to be specified, that you really got to wrap your mind around if that's even just as soon as you just go there. It is such a devastating blow to any Christian pretending that it means anything else. If you are pretending it doesn't mean what it's saying, then you are having some serious issues. Right after, right before that, after it says that it stops in the midst of heaven. So it's in the midst. So it's literally giving you the idea, like it's very descriptive, So the reiteration, the specified detail, and the redundancy with the 2 locations is, I can't think of a more detailed part of the Bible, is what I'm really trying to get here. Like, I think that there are some detailed parts of certain things, but it takes a lot to hold a candle to that type of specified information. So again, you have to call that you can call it allegorical, or you can admit that you're wrong.
Right. That's exactly
oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, that's exactly what that Dr. Heiser came to, and he never resolved it, as far as I know. He couldn't deal with the fact that if you make it all allegorical, then Jesus didn't rise from the dead. That's where it leads you.
Yeah, and my part that I'm confused by is, how do Christians ignore that? How? How, if you say you're a follower of Jesus Christ, you deny the first sentence in the Bible, God created? How?
Right.
It's just,
I don't know. It's a mystery, and
they need to wake up.
Yeah.
And stop denying God's word.
It's our job to at least make them aware that there's a problem. It's their responsibility what they do with that information, and it's God's responsibility how to deal with it, as far as
Absolutely.
People who decide to ignore it and bury their heads in the sand, because
right,
ignorance is not a virtue.
Right, absolutely. And then it clearly says, be not of this world. So why is NASA, some Nazi scientists, telling you what your world is, what your reality is?
Right. And it says
common sense, people.
Yeah, it says be transformed by the renewing of your mind. people don't renew their mind, and it's no surprise they're not
Nope.
transformed.
See the renewing
Absolutely.
part. That's what they miss. That renewing, that going outside and looking at the world around you and going, "Wow, it really turned out to be this instead of the other BS lie." Like, wow, how amazing is this? That's the way I felt.
Right.
It really is a renewing.
Yeah, and it changes you. It's supposed to change you. The more, the more, the truth setting you free and all that. It's not supposed to, what does set you free mean? Some people would say, and then you go, well, it's supposed to transform you. It's supposed to make you different. You're supposed to be salt and light. You're supposed to be the aroma of Christ, as Paul put it, where to those who are being saved, that is to say, those who are open to the gospel, you are the fragrance of life, but to those who are not, you are the stench of death. And you can tell by the reaction you get from people whether you're salt and light or not, whether you have that aroma. Because if everybody speaks well of you, the Bible itself says, then you got something to be concerned about, because they don't speak well of their enemies. We are enemies of the state. We're in Satan's kingdom, but we have accepted citizenship in God's kingdom. And so we're enemies of the state here. And if we're not mistreated, then what's going on? If people don't think about that stuff. They don't think about anything.
No, they already know. So they already know better, and that's it leads down a path of destruction of them pretending they already know something, and then
Right.
you just see where that leads to. It's you can predict where they're going to go with it almost every time. They turn into a robot.
Right. That is. It's just going through the motions of life.
Yeah, it's weird. It's funny because I would say I've had more non-Christians open up to this.
Right.
As
It
far
is.
as that I didn't change their mind. I've had more non-Christians come to me and in a sense and private and on open air and you name it, be open to this information and actually at least acknowledge that they're thinking about it and going in different directions. It's really weird because it just seems like, yeah, like you were saying earlier, Christians used to be I guess attacked with this notion that the Bible was a flat earth book. So then when that turned out to be true, they have that idea in their head. Kent Hovind is a perfect example of that, on top of the fact that Kent Hovind also had his own theory based on the basically heliocentric model anyway. So that dude is stuck in his own paradigm as well. And it's unfortunate. He is still a great stair-stepping program for a lot of people that want to wake up to some of the truths about the school system, though. That's for sure. It's just that he forgot to leave out the heliocentric model of the textbooks.
Yeah, that's just one of those things. People have blind spots, and we all probably still have some, but that's a pretty big blind spot. I mean,
Yeah, I was gonna say. I think you're being very nice.
yeah, well,
That's beyond a blind spot. That's just being totally deny.
right,
It's
closed-minded.
denial.
Yeah,
Oh, it's beyond. It's denial. It's
right,
right there. You claim to believe in the Bible. You called our Lord and Savior your Lord and Savior, but you're going to deny the first sentence in the Bible. Really?
right.
That's no. There's no excuse for that. None.
Nope.
None.
And I don't know
Yeah,
what you can do about it. The most Christians, especially online, there is no way to, they will cite authorities as people who write books or run seminars or have a name and a following, that if you didn't go to a seminary and if you don't have a big church and you're not this and you're not that, then your opinion just doesn't count. And I argue with people all the time. It's like, well, here's something, and they'll say, here's a word, here's what it means in Strong's Concordance. And I go, Strong's? Nobody, that knows anything about ancient languages would use Strong's as a dictionary. It even says it's not what it is. It's not a dictionary, it's a concordance. And if you don't know the difference, then why do you think you understand this topic at all? You can't debate it if you don't know the difference.
Right.
And
It's excuses.
yeah, it is. And they appeal to authority. It's a logical fallacy,
Mm-hmm.
appeal to authority. And
Mm-hmm.
they just, you can't get a word in edgewise because you don't have credentials. You don't have the world behind you. And that never makes them bat an eye, and I just shake my head.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And if you're not going to take the time to look into it, then you really don't have anything to say to me. Period. Prove me wrong.
Right. And
Prove me wrong.
that's another thing. All too often and for too long, Christians have been willingly sitting on the witness stand, being pelted with questions endlessly by people who would never submit to the same treatment. And it's time that we turn the tables, especially when it comes to atheism or anything else like that. It's like, you sit down, you shut up, you answer my questions, you defend your beliefs or disbeliefs, as the case may be. You defend your model, ball earthers.
Well, atheist, that's a religion. And I'm not in a religion, and I'm not religious. And so if they're going to tell me that my knowledge is wrong, then they need to prove me wrong.
Right. They have to prove their assertions.
Yeah, absolutely. And none of them do. None of them can, because everything they believe is based on a lie. Even Pillbox has a book that says all the evolution book. You read the whole thing, and then it says, well, none of this can be backed up or verified.
Yeah. It's completely unscientific. You can't falsify it and observe it and all these things. All you can observe, everybody observes the same facts, but how you interpret it depends on your presuppositions, and they won't go there. No, they can't. It's not fair. You have to stay on the witness stand. No, we're the prosecutor. You cannot ask us to defend anything we believe. So, but I don't play that game anymore. It's like that one guy that tried to come on the panel that one day. I was like, no, you defend yourself.
Huh? PG.
I forget his name.
Positively Godless, yeah.
Okay,
AKA Pizzagate.
Yeah. Pizzagate.
Might as well have been, right? But
yeah.
But I wasn't going to sit on the witness stand for any topic. I mean, I'm tired of it. It isn't fair to keep us on the witness stand. It isn't fair to always keep flat earthers on the witness stand, or Christians, or young earth creationists, or whatever. It's time for everybody else to defend, because it's much harder to defend than attack, and they need a taste of their own medicine.
Like the one guy tonight who came in and said that my wife's a scientist and my friend is studying physics. That was really good credentials. I like that guy.
End of discussion.
Yeah, thanks for playing. I'm like, well, have you ever thought for yourself? Okay, so your wife tells you what to do. This isn't starting out too good for you, buddy. I gotta let you know. So okay, we can tell that your wife rules your life. That's fine. Maybe that's a good thing. But at the same time, I guarantee you that your manhood is in her purse, so you're not going to be able to approach this with any manhood. So it's too late.
Well, and it's not just about manhood. It's about being an adult. I mean, you have to take responsibility for what you believe, and to defer your knowledge to some other person when somebody's debating you, not the other person, means is you don't know what you're talking about. And if you don't know, you should say, I don't know, but I know people who know and I trust them. Okay, fine, but don't try to debate me with somebody else's brain. I'm not talking to them. I'm talking to you.
No, and that brings me to the other thing. Since I've already got into the sexism, and obviously this makes me a sexist anyway, and it's too late for me to take that back, and I'm going to get soundbited. But this other topic of as far as women's liberation, which I don't like to call it that, but I have nothing else to call it, because once you come to this truth, you are no longer having to listen to man. So in a sense, it is a true form of liberation. And if you notice, the ladies in Flat Earth are not only very strong, they are vocal, and they're not afraid. You see more women speaking out against this than anything. I've never seen anything like it where I've seen countless, and they're very strong ladies, and they're very persistent, and they don't budge because they know that they are no longer slaves. And I think that is a great thing. And I think there's even some Christians out there that are very confused about that subject.
Yes.
And I've even seen some very stupid things about that lady where lately, as far as saying that, because the Bible in this one part says that women are to be quiet, but it's talking about, actually, it's not even a claim from God. It's not even a law of God, but it's from what another man said, and it's written down in the Bible what this man said, so therefore women should be silent, and that is a big mistake, and you should have known better, and you should have looked into that part of the Bible, especially if you're a Christian, to figure out what is going on there, because it's obviously not what people think. And that's one of the most fun things, actually, is one of my favorite things for the past 3 or 4 years is every time somebody wants to tell me the Bible is saying something, I look into it, and usually, and I mean 99% of the time, it's nowhere near to what I'm being told that there's a problem involved with some sort of major issue that's absolutely ridiculous. And no, usually there's a very good explanation for it. And again, that's another thing that takes honesty. But even Christians are getting these things wrong. So don't expect you other people out there that aren't even ready to accept Christ to even think that you have it figured out. There are Christians that don't have a clue, and it's not supposed to be easy.
Right. Yeah, that whole issue would be a hangout of its own. And I did do one on equality, or I forget what exactly I titled it, but it's on my channel. Hierarchy, I think it was. It was in the title is hierarchy. And have a book on it. I have commentaries on the New Testament. So I've been all over that topic. As I was telling you before we went live, that is what got me into the New Testament so hard, was that topic, because I needed to know, and I needed to know firsthand what the Bible was saying. And when you go through, there are like something like 18,000 different words in the New Testament, and the reason I know that is because I put them in a dictionary myself, because I couldn't buy one already made. And so I wrote my own software, and I made up a database, and I started collecting the words and putting them in. And there's over 18,000, because that's what my database count says. Because in Greek, every different form of the word, like, we might say he ran, he would run, he has run, ran teaches, run, the verb, the infinitive form, changes spelling as we go through different tenses and all that grammatical stuff. In Greek, you will have different affixes, prefix, midfix, suffix, and each one of those is a different word. As far as I needed to know, I wanted a separate entry in my dictionary for that, because then I could just assign it an ID, and every time I needed that word, it would always have the same meaning come up for me in my dictionary, and I would have a full understanding of that word in every form of it. And so I put in, 18,000 words. So, and when you do that, you become pretty familiar with the writers as well, because they use a word a certain way, and you get to know the writers of the New Testament. Like, for example, Paul was very sarcastic. He was very witty. He was very crude. And he had certain ways of expressing himself in Greek that if you aren't up on that and noticing that, then you're going to mistranslate some things. Even though it's a legitimate translation, it's inaccurate in that you don't know the person. You can't just know the topic.
Right.
You have to know the person that you're talking to, because you're talking to someone at a great distance in time and language and culture. And that's kind of nitpicky, nuts and bolts, take the whole car apart in your garage kind of a study is what it takes to really get into the context, aside from, all the historical environment and everything else, because the Bible was not written in a vacuum. And so,
Right.
and Paul was sarcastic and all those things. John was just out there. He's weird. And you just get to know these people. And if you don't know that and you hear them say, like, for example, I got a feel for the fact that Paul is quoting the Corinthians. He'll say, you said, I heard a report. He starts off in the first chapter. I heard a report from Chloe and another lady, I forget her name. These were heads of churches, if you look at the Greek. They were the pastors. It was their churches, not their households. They completely mistranslate it in English. And these people were the heads of churches were sending Paul messages. It wasn't just anybody. And it wasn't just somebody's family. These were the congregations, and they were sending Paul these questions. And Paul was answering them. And that's just one of those cases when he talks about women being silent. First of all, the people that he's quoting from Corinth are quoting the Talmud. They're not even quoting the laws of Moses, because Moses never said the women should keep silent. He never said it.
Right.
It's not in the law. So if you know that that's not in the law, then you know Paul is, and there's little indicators in the Greek that tell you the beginning and end of a quote. They're not absolutely precise, but we've got good indicators there in that whole section that this is a quote. And so Paul is not saying let the women keep silent. And in fact, after the end quote, he says, what? Did the word of God come to you? And he's totally lambasting this idea. And so, but English translators, and I have a whole bunch of stuff on my website about it isn't just that. There's other things too, where the United Bible Society's committee that's supposed to be guarding the integrity of the Greek and Hebrew text violated their own rules to turn Junia into a man. They did a gender bender just because they could not stomach a woman being called an apostle. And that stood for 50 years of translating the Bible from Greek into all languages. This error, calling her Junian or Junius, whichever is the masculine form, I always get them mixed up. But and so all these other languages had this error perpetuated, and then they violated their own rules and didn't have any attestation from Greek that there was such a form of that name in that century. It didn't arise till the Middle Ages, and finally the committee quietly changed it back, again, breaking their own rules. And so when you know that shenanigans like that are going on, you have to know the Greek yourself, or you're going to be led astray by the translators. It's just unbelievable. Another deep rabbit hole.
Well, that is an impressive wealth of knowledge you have on that subject, because I hadn't heard about that specific topic. So I'm impressed. Yeah, and it's very good to hear, and it definitely makes me want to look into this a little bit more. I'm going to definitely have to delve into that. I wonder how many other names like that were changed.
Not so much. The only time they would monkey with it is when it comes to the New Testament is if it was a woman. For example, I think it's 2 John. He writes to what they translate in English as the elect lady. It says curio, which is the word we get, is translated Lord mostly, and kurios is Lord, okay? Lord, Master, Sir. But even Strong's, if you look at Strong's, it'll make this glaring anomaly exception to say, this is a woman's name, Curia, even though there's no such name in antiquity. They decided it must be a woman's name, Curia, but it isn't. He is calling her master. And people would say, no, he wouldn't call anyone master, only Jesus is master. Well, then what about all the guys that are called kurios in the Greek? I mean, it's a fallacy called special pleading, where they make an exception for no reason other than prejudice. And so John is writing to the head of a church, and this is why he says, don't even invite these people into your house, because the church met in her house. It's just all over the New Testament. It isn't just the New Testament. I have a document somewhere in one of my websites by William Dankenbring, who goes over what's good about the Septuagint, the Old Testament in Greek, and why the Masoretic text that was done several hundred years after Christ is unreliable. It was made by the same rabbis who crucified, the kind of people who would crucify Christ. They were not above changing the Bible. And they changed it in specific places because they wanted to hide the Messiah and obscure all the references, because the Christians were using it, the Bible, the Septuagint, to prove that Jesus fulfilled those prophecies. And so that's why the Old Testament is so hard to prove Jesus from. It isn't our fault. It's because the rabbis, the Pharisees and scribes changed it. And I heard a lecture by a Pharisee once, a modern day Pharisee. He was on YouTube. I cannot find it anymore. And at those time, years ago, I didn't know how to download anything. And he explained the mentality of a Pharisee. And he said, once God gave the law to them, they decided that not even God could tell them how to interpret it. It was theirs because God gave it to them. And now not even God could have authority over it. That's how they think. And so they had no qualms with changing the scriptures to obscure the fulfillment of the prophecies of the Messiah by Jesus. And that's what the Masoretic text is. It just makes you want to grind your teeth to put it mildly. The things you learn.
Wow, yeah. When you said the us part, it reminded me of like a name like Flavius. If I had to assume, I thought that was masculine.
Yeah, the forms of words, and it's funny. That's another thing about when people will build an entire theology out of a pronoun. In Hebrew, a man's hand is called she. In the Holy Spirit is called she. In Greek, the Holy Spirit is it. It takes the neuter pronoun. So, because in English, we don't have gendered nouns the way they do in most other languages. We have a few leftovers, but they would call, in other languages, we'll call it, like even in English, sometimes especially more archaic, they would call a ship she. Well, that's not just, something people do out of habit. It used to be that English in its earlier forms would have gendered pronouns. And so you would call the Holy Spirit it because spirit was a neuter noun. And you would call a hand she because the word for hand was a feminine noun. It had nothing to do with the biology of the person, and it had nothing to do with the biology of things that have none, like a rock or a chair or something. And yet languages, for the most part, have assigned a gender to that. That's just grammatical gender. It's not the same as biological gender. And so people will take a he. It's just for an example. In the book of Hebrews, nobody knows who wrote it. People will there's a single spot in that entire long book that has a masculine pronoun for one of the writers. There's more than one. And it says so right there in Hebrews, in the New Testament. And they will build an entire case for a masculine author on that word he. Whereas if it had been she, I can guarantee you they would not have done such a thing and said that the author was a woman. And in fact, back in the 1800s, there was a German guy, von Harnack or something like that, I forget his name, who concluded, in spite of being in Germany in the 1800s, which was staunchly patriarchal, that the author of Hebrews must have been a woman because there is to use his words, a conspiracy of silence on the author. Paul signed all his letters. Everybody else said who they were who was writing the letter, except Hebrews in the New Testament. And they believe it's by his research that it must have been a woman. And because she was a woman, that she had to hide her name or nobody would circulate the letter because it was a patriarchal society. So the woman's name was hidden. And by research, I'm convinced that, from other people's research as well, that it was Priscilla, who was named by Paul as the courier of his letter to the Romans. And you don't just give that to anybody. He gave it to a woman and had her explain the letter to the people in Rome. So these are things you will never hear in any church, ever. I was in church for 47 years. I just started going back a year ago. I had stayed out for 10, but I was in it for 47 years before that, and I never heard any such things.
And 100 million other people.
Yeah, I know. But that's the topic that got me into deep, deep Bible study and lit a fire under me to do the New Testament. I mean, I couldn't let it go. It was tedious work. And it took years And I even took a year sabbatical because I was just like, this mountain is too high to climb, you know. But then fire was rekindled. I had a year off, and then I finished it up. But man, how did I do that? I don't even know. I couldn't have. It was my hands did the work, but that was not me, because I mean, that's crazy.
Oh yeah, amen to that. I know exactly what you're saying. I think Mr. Campbell, he might have retired for the night. I know that he's very busy, so I might not expect him to be back. I'm sure this is going to go on for a few hours. Um, Anything else you wanted to talk about tonight, ladies?
Yeah. So there's like this thing going on. This lady, her name is Kat, and she's on YouTube. And I believe in the Mandela effect. Not all of them. Some of them businesses change their logos. Some things people forget and they thought they remembered it correctly. And then there has been some real things that you go, wait a minute, no, that's wrong. Okay. And I do have Mandela effect videos on my channel. Okay. So I do have belief in some of these. But this lady is using the Mandela effect to say the Bible has changed.
Ah.
And yeah, and I'm not okay with that. And she's saying she's using an old King James version, but she's not, because on the side margin of the Bible, it has the translations from the old King James version. So she's saying it is, but it's not. And she's saying, go check in your Bibles, go check in your Bibles, it's changed. But she's not using the correct Bible. She's claiming she is, but it's not. And anytime you leave a message on any of her videos, explaining this to her, she deletes all messages that is trying to give her um, criticism in a kind way. Doesn't matter. And yeah, delete. Now anyone who walks in with Lord Jesus Christ, if somebody says, hold on a minute, are you using the correct Bible, because I'm seeing that it's not, wouldn't you want to respond and say, you know what, here, this is the Bible I'm using, I'll show you in a video the inside of the Bible, the date, the author, everything. You'd want to verify that, especially when you're claiming it's been changed, because what that does is it makes young people, or maybe people that are swayed easily, to not have confidence in the word anymore.
Exactly. That's what that's about.
Yeah. And it's very upsetting.
There's very few things that I truly believe that my memory is accurate and things have changed, like somebody who died who's suddenly still alive. That's the whole thing that Mandela was about. But beyond that, I do not believe that anybody's, even Satan is allowed to go back and erase every copy in everybody's house of every piece of paper somehow, by changing the past. And that's so far beyond any kind of evidence seeking that I can't waste time on it. Because if what people are saying when they're saying it's that pervasive that it's changing the Bible, is they're saying nothing is knowable. Everything is in complete flux all the time, and you have no way of knowing what's true from one minute to the next. And what it does is make you realize how futile it is to try to learn the truth about anything. Well, who would have the motivation for that kind of a teaching,
Right. And that's why I'm looking at this lady going, okay, now either you're being deceitful intentionally, or you're misguided, or you're misled. Something is going on here. Okay. And if you're doing it intentionally, I have a problem with that. You're not going to use the Mandela effect to make people question whether or not the Bible is, you can trust in the Bible or not, in God's word.
Right.
And being deceitful about the Bible that you're using.
Right. Exactly.
Not cool. So I just want to point that out to people, maybe anyone who might be listening in the future or now, whenever, that if you come across this, question what Bible they're reading, really look at what they're showing you. Don't just take it as, oh yeah, the Bible changed. Everything's changing in the Bible, because every day, sometimes a couple times a day, she's showing Mandela effects in the Bible. Please don't
Yeah.
fall for that trap. That is another
Psyop.
yeah, it's a psyop. It's evil. I don't know if she's, like I said, I don't know if she's doing this intentionally or not. But to me, if you're gonna delete my posts and other people's posts that have pointed this out to her, not just me, but other people as well, and you delete them immediately and ban them
Yeah.
just by making any comment, just one little comment, nice comments too, not trolling, because I'm not a troll. I have Mandela effects on my channel with hundreds of thousands of views on just one video. I'm not a troll, okay? I believe in this stuff, but not that. And if it is a change in the Bible, then you need to use the old King James Bible like you're claiming and show it. Don't use a different Bible and then say it changed, because then obviously it's going to be different, like what you were saying,
Right.
the new translations and stuff like that. Yeah. So I just want to point that out to people. Please be aware. Don't just fall for the okie dokie. There's a lot of crap out there on YouTube, and just do your research on it.
Right. And
Please.
we don't have perfect memories. And or your brain will, just by its nature, will try to fill in the blanks. If a certain piece of a memory gets lost, it'll fill it in, with stuff that never happened, just to try to keep things together. It's just the way that your brain works when it dreams. You do that every time you dream. Your brain tries to make sense of things without the sense making part of your brain being awake. And that with your memories, you can lose parts of it, but your brain still will piece it together, and you'll lose a few details like song lyrics or something you misheard. A lot of those so-called Mandela effects are misheard lyrics, and then you remember the wrong ones, and everybody starts repeating the wrong ones. As like Jimmy pointed out the other day, with like if somebody notices a mistake of some product mass produced in China, that somebody heard wrong, they're not going to waste all the product and redo it just to fix it, and it'll go out with the wrong spelling, like the Bernstein
Right.
Bears or whatnot.
And that's fine. That doesn't even bother me though. I don't see that stuff doesn't matter. Magic mirror, 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 whatever. I
Yeah,
know it's mirror,
yeah,
mirror, whatever. You guys can argue about that all you damn want. I don't care. But when you are trying to say the Bible has changed, that's making people's foundation crumble.
right. And
What is she gonna say next? God evolved the earth the
right,
first day, and the people are going to go, oh my god, I remember it was created. Is it evolved? It's evolved now. So evolution is true. I mean, what's next? What's your limit?
yeah, where does it stop? And the thing is, we're not making an excuse just because it's the Bible. We're saying that you're taking this Mandela thing way too far, to the point of
Way.
absurdity,
Yeah.
and that you don't know. How do you know it changed? Why didn't they change your memory too? If it's truly a change in the timeline, then it would have changed everything, and you would not have that memory, and you never know anything was changed. The fact that you know it means it's not true. It's not an effect.
Right. Right.
Yeah, that's also known as the, I think Rand put it, the Samdela effect or
Yes.
defect. Samdela defect. Yep. Some people just went too far, and then they're over they're imagining that they're on the flat Earth going over the edge, and they can't stop. Samdela defect.
Yes. Yeah, that's a good term.
Yeah, absolutely. I just want to bring that to people's attention, though, just in case they do come across that. I mean, if you want to entertain yourself with those things, sometimes I do, but that's not my main focus in my research. Not at all. That's just how I pass time. But
Yeah.
that's for fun. That's fun research for me. I
And
mean,
that
it's all
was
fun for me, but that's more like just
and that
whatever.
was one
But
of the first things I was when I first started hearing about it. I'm like, why are they only changing stupid trivia? For the most part. I think when they started
right.
to hear that, they stepped up the game and said, oh, it's the Bible now. Oh, okay, now it's real. Now it's
Well,
important.
it's this one lady. I haven't found anyone else that's doing this. Maybe there. I'm pretty sure
There
there is.
are. I've heard other
Okay.
people say they think the Bible's been changed.
Okay. Well, this lady is like really hardcore going at it every day.
Yeah.
Yeah, like really, like it seems like there's an agenda there. That's all. That's
Yes.
my problem
I
with that.
agree. Yep.
You know. Mm. So, anyways, yeah. Thank you.
So, Pillbox, are we done, or what do you want to do? Because it's like 11:15 here in the Eastern time zone. And our host is,
Yeah,
as you said,
I
is
don't
gone.
know.
So
I'm not really sure, actually. This is one of those issues that I have to solve, and I hate fixing anything. So, your guess is as good as me. I'm sure that the ship is going to sail for a little while.
Well, I just have to jump. I just have to jump out for like 3 minutes. I'll be back. Maybe I can invite some people in. If you guys want to jump out, or if you guys want to stay, whatever. It's only 8:17 here, 8:18.
okay,
So
you must be on the West Coast.
yeah, it's still early.
Yeah.
So I can hang out for a little bit longer. But like I said, I have to jump out just for 3 minutes though.
All
So yeah. All right. So if you guys leave, good talking to you. If not, I'll see you in a minute.
Okay.
All right, have a good night.
Okay. Well, I'll be back, Bill. Okay. Good night.
I see a message here from Rand on the sidebar here that you probably can't see. Pillbox it says, "I'm off to bed. Good night, guys." So he's done for the night.
Yep, there it is. So, yeah, I think that concludes the night, and unless, well, I know I put the link out there, but so I will just assume that it's probably a good time to close it down anyway, since that was probably more than a couple hours, right?
Yeah, he just posted that message, so he was listening, but he's done.
Good.
But
Right
the
on.
thing has been running for at least 2 hours.
Right. Okay.
So, yeah, and we haven't had a lot of people watching. We did have a troll at the beginning, but we ignored him and he went away, so everything's cool. So, yeah,
Yep.
if you have the power to shut it down.
I think it's just gonna run, but Rand might shut it down because he might be listening to us. But
Okay.
yeah, I think we're gonna just let it sail out probably, unless he shuts it down. But
Yeah, if he goes offline, it'll shut down in 5 minutes by itself.
right. Yep, that sounds about right. Yeah.
Okay,
Well,
I
yeah,
guess
it's been fun. Yep, we'll do it again.
Yep. Should we stick around and fill space until it disappears, or should we just sign off?
I plan on just shutting my side off, and
Okay.
that's it. Yeah, I'm sure we'll recuperate. If anybody's gonna do anything after this, we can, if
Right.
if anybody was in the chat right now saying that they were gonna come in, I'd stay. But if there's not, then we'll stop.
I don't see anybody.
Yep. I think
All
that's
right.
it then. Have a good night.
You too.
Thank you very
Thanks
much,
for
ladies
inviting
and
me.
gentlemen. Yeah, Mons, it's been fun. We'll see you
All right. Night.
later.